Welcome to For You Radio, where the gospel's for the believer and the unbeliever alike. That's you. I'm Craig D'Onofrio, pastor of St. James Lutheran Church in the old Brooklyn neighborhood of Cleveland, Ohio.
And I am Troy Neer, pastor, St. Peter's Lutheran Church, Shaker Heights, Ohio.
I invite you to visit either or both of our churches, depending on where you happen to be or how far you're willing to drive. So do come on out and visit us. We are also a broadcast of 1517.org. They've got a wonderful broadcast and podcast network. Go to 1517.org/podcasts. We have had over 6 million downloads in the last year. And when I say we, I don't mean For You Radio, but the network as a whole.
Okay.
And
it's like I've seen our stats. I didn't think that many for us.
We've had about 12 downloads.
Yeah.
And
so your mom did 6 and my mom did another 6?
Yeah, that sounds about right, yeah.
Hi, Mom.
No, we actually have a decent listenership. But regardless, you can expand your knowledge base and your blessing base, I guess you could say, by going to 1517.org/podcasts and check that out. Okay, Troy, if people wanted to email us or find us on the internet, what is the best course of action?
Well, I'm still a little bit stumped by blessing base, but okay, I'm going to go with that.
It's just something I made up, and I thought I'll regret that as soon as it comes out of my mouth.
That's all right, but it was okay.
It.
But to be blessed, go to www.foruradio.org. And to bless us, please open up your email program and go type an email to and send it to, what is it? For You Radio at 1517.org.
There you go.
Thank you.
Very good. Well, we are continuing down our path as we look into the table of duties from the Lutheran Small Catechism, from Martin Luther's Small Catechism.
Yeah, once again, I got to just say, duty.
Duty.
Okay.
You said it.
I am really kind of fundamentally just 12 years old. That's really what I am.
Yeah, the inner seventh grader must come out on occasion. So this is basically what, as a Christian, you should be up to or should not be up to, and that sort of thing.
Oh, okay.
And it's mostly law. So we already talked about
it's all law.
It is all law.
There's all law because the only gospel is the gospel of Jesus Christ forgiving us our sins. This is all stuff that guides and directs us, and maybe at time actually should convict us that we're not doing it right.
Well, let me also point this out. In the law, there is also gospel because there is gift as well as commandments not to do things, right? So you will have no other gods before me. Okay. You're prohibited from having other gods, but you get to have the one true God, who is the one that counts, right? So with the curse comes a blessing also, right?
And so the law is not a curse, is my point.
Just like Monk on TV. No, if you remember that series, it was a cursing and a blessing to have his abilities.
Okay, my point is the law is not a curse.
Well, the
law is good and right.
It condemns.
Yes.
The law always condemns.
Yes, but it's not a curse.
It doesn't only condemn.
Oh, my goodness. Right. Okay, so anyway, I have no problem with saying this is law, and that's a good thing.
Okay.
So anyway.
So we've already talked about what pastors owe to those that they pastor over, what the hearers owe their pastors, and now we move on to civil government and citizens.
Okay, so we're moving on to our these various stations then in life that we find ourselves, or the theological term would be our vocations.
Yes.
Right, so not just the job you do, but kind of the various, how to describe this?
Obligations, I would say, as a citizen. Well, okay, so we all hold various vocations, and as I like to point out, as a father of 11, you have a huge vocation as a father of 11, as a husband of one wife, as the pastor of a church, as the son of parents, and sibling of your siblings, and so forth and so on. There are many vocations that we each hold in this life, right?
Yes,
so
yes.
Whatever you are given to do, whether it be doctor or janitor or anywhere in between or whatever, God has given you this position, and you should do it to his glory. And you should serve in the best that you can, not just in the workplace, but in your personal life, as a member of the church.
Sure.
As the son or daughter of your parents, and so forth and so on.
So we have particular duties that are to be done according to each of these different stations or vocations or walks in life,
Right.
right? So I have particular duties as a father.
Right.
I
And
have-
hopefully there are also blessings that go with those obligations, right?
Okay. Well, there should be, but in any case, yeah. So what we need is then
You're still waiting for those to show up.
we need a
the
no.
blessings.
There's tremendous blessings, but
I know.
but that doesn't. I don't think of a duty as a 4-letter word, even though it is. Technically, but I don't think of it as a bad thing. Duty is not a bad thing. It's actually
That took a second to hit. It actually is a 4-lettered word.
It is, right? Yes. Anyway, so but I guess my point is that hey, you want to know how to be a husband, how to be a father. We'll be reviewing those.
Right.
You want to know, hey, how should government work?
Right.
That's what we're talking about right now today.
Right.
Okay, so let's do it.
So, of civil government is the heading here. And we are pointed to Romans 13, verses 1 through 4 in particular. But I think, we'll probably press on to 5 and 6 and 7 a little later on. But 1 through 4 reads like this. Let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those that exist have been instituted by God. Therefore, for whoever resists the authorities resists what God has appointed, and those who resist will incur judgment. For rulers are not a terror to good conduct, but to bad. Would you have no fear of the one who is in authority? Then do what is good, and you will receive his approval. For he is God's servant for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid, for he does not bear the sword in vain. For he is the servant of God, an avenger who carries out God's wrath on the wrongdoer. So we'll stop there.
Okay.
So the government is established by God here. There is no authority except from God. And those that exist have been instituted by God.
I want to, yeah, go ahead.
Well, no, this, kind of begs the question. We look at the Old Testament and the way that governments evolved there, right?
Okay.
So
Not following you yet, but go ahead.
Okay.
You keep going on this path, and I'll see if I can pick it up.
Let me rephrase that. The governing authorities amongst God's people, how they evolved. We were a theocracy, right? We followed God. God was our leader. He was our ruler. He had prophets. He had judges and so forth. And they told us what God says. And so we followed them because they were the voices of God. So God was our king. Over a period of time, we saw that our God lives in a tent as we wander in the wilderness for 40 years and then settle down in the promised land. And the pagans have these really cool temples, and they have kings who ride around in golden chariots and stuff like that. And that's really cool. And we can't even see our king, and we should get one of those, and we should build a temple. And God says,
we need an earthly king.
I'm happy living in my tent. I'm a happy camper. And they said, no, you need a temple and we need a king. God says, well, you don't really want a king. Your sons will be conscripted into the military and you're going to have to pay all these taxes. And it's really not that cool as you think it is, but we want one. He says, okay, don't say I didn't warn you. And so the kings were established and the corruption came immediately. It didn't take long at all for corruption. And so we see Saul and David and the fighting that goes on there, and then David and Bathsheba. And, it just doesn't take long for us to wreck what God has established as good.
Well, that's just the general presence of sin in the world, too, right?
Exactly.
And so even a democracy or a republic is going to be threatened if we refuse to not follow some basic biblical sense of morality.
Right. Yeah.
Now, one thing I do like to point out, though, too, that we went to the New Testament, to Romans, because that's kind of the quintessential government verse in the New Testament.
Right.
It is pretty much a fallacy. It's really an error to go to the Old Testament for indications of how government should be working today, because, as you said, that was a theocracy.
Right.
We do not have a theocracy.
No.
We have a different form of government.
In the United States, we're blessed to have a republic, a democratic republic. And so we are really blessed that we are a government of, for, and by the people. And so we get to actually participate. We aren't just some people that get stuff done to them, and they can't step up and say, "Hey, wait a minute." I mean, we have the ability to actually vote people out of office and vote people into office. So in a perfect America, we would actually look at what our leaders are up to and say, "This pleases me, I will vote you back in," or "This displeases me, and I will vote you out."
Right. Okay.
But sadly,
So-
a lot of information is
Let us
too controlled, I guess.
Let's talk about that with citizens in just a few minutes.
Yes.
So right now for government, once again, government established by God. All authority established by God.
Right.
And to do something specific. Now, what I really am fascinated by here is that the thing that floats to the top that the government is to do in these verses is to bear the sword.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is this great theological term for meaning basically punish the lawbreakers.
Yes. And I can't help but to consider, and this is a left turn, I know, Troy, these things make you nuts, but Jesus
Okay.
standing before Pilate and Jesus saying, "You have no authority except that which is given to you."
Oh, good point.
Right? And Pilate is
good
there
one.
with a sword. I mean, he has the power of life and death, right? And,
Okay.
and so, Jesus himself kind of bears out what Paul's talking about here is that, the government is established rightfully to have this power of judgment. But even as we see in the case of Christ, it is often not properly used, and it is often properly used also.
Yeah.
Right? I'm sure Pilate had many bad people put to death. But we know
I hope so.
we know he had at least one good guy put to death.
Yeah, at least one. Right?
The only good guy, really.
The only one who is truly good. Yeah.
Right.
Oh my goodness. No more left turns.
Right.
So so bearing the sword. Let's discuss that for just a hot minute here. That takes on classically kind of two different forms or avenues. One, punishing the wrongdoers in the society itself. So in that sense, we are protecting our citizens by punishing wrongdoers.
Right.
So people who break in or thieving things. Thank you.
Thieves?
Thieves, the thieves who
Thieving thieves who thieve?
thieves, yes. Whew.
Stealers.
Not the football team,
Not necessarily. No.
but they should be punished too. Anyway, but so thieves, murderers, all that sort of thing, right there too. So basically, any time that anyone hurts or harms our neighbor in his body or his property or anything else like that, the government's responsibility, duty, is to step in and take care of that lawbreaker.
Right. It's interesting also, though, as you're talking about this, that law is written on the heart of man, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the Ten Commandments is basically written on our hearts. Every culture knows you shouldn't steal, you shouldn't murder people. Another man's wife is off limits. If you want a guy chasing you down with a club, go ahead, but you're going to pay.
Oh,
right?
wait, hold on a second.
Yeah.
Go for it.
No,
finish your thought.
But the law that is universal is this natural law that is written on the heart of man. And we know what's right and wrong. But we also want to suppress what's right and wrong so we can do what our sinful nature wants all
Yes.
too often, right?
And that is where a good government comes in and is established,
Right.
to wield that sword, so that if nothing else, it will repress that instinct in me to say, but I just want to drive as fast as I want.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
No. You will be pulled over. You'll be ticketed. You'll be fined and perhaps put in jail.
And there are
now the
times
other-
where you breaking the law is not a sin. I mean, there are times where your wife is in labor, and it is understandable that you would drive 60 miles an hour in a 25 zone because you're trying to get to the hospital, right?
By the way, that's some of my favorite memories in life. It's just, woo, yeah, finally doing it.
Hey, God willing, if a cop pulls you over and he sees your wife over there huffing and puffing and 10 months pregnant, he's going to say, let me lead the way here. And he lights him up and leads you on,
I never
at 70
got that.
miles an hour.
I never got that.
Did you get pulled over?
No.
Okay, so you got lucky.
I always wanted that part of the story too. But anyway,
Yeah, right.
Yes. So back to the sword. So the sword. The other part of the government wielding the sword is to, we would say, wage just wars in order to protect her citizens.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
Now that gets a little bit dicey because what is a just war? But essentially, a war that is waged not for profit, not for gain, but to ward off an aggressive invader.
Right.
That's kind of what we're talking about here.
Well, I think just war, you can say, is it a war that is protecting that which is right and good? That's probably the easiest way to look at it.
There we go. Okay, that sounds fine. That's fine. And so that would lead us back to the government is God's servant to bring terror to the wrongdoer.
Yes.
And to bring God's wrath upon the wrongdoer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is what we should expect from our government. Now, our government does a lot of other nice things too, right?
Yes.
Don't they?
Yeah.
But is that really part of, at least from this description, is that really part of their God-given job?
The other nice stuff or protecting us from the wrongdoer?
No, the nice stuff.
The nice stuff?
Really? I mean, the only thing we get here in Romans is that they're the agent of the sword.
Well, you would hope that you would have a benevolent government.
I would think so.
That would be a godly thing for them to behave in a way where the golden rule is observed and kept. I would, do unto Republicans and Democrats alike.
Let me go this far, and I'm probably going to regret saying this, but can we defend from the scriptures the notion that government is there to give you stuff?
No.
I find that really difficult to assert. Now,
you can defend from scriptures that I am here to help my brother and sister.
Yeah.
That you can defend. Not to get off into the sticks into politics here or anything, but I think that charity is a personal matter, not a governmental matter.
Okay.
For me to redistribute wealth is not charitable. For me to give you out of my own pocket, out of my love, is charitable. And I am showing you the love of Christ. I'm not showing you the love of Christ by taking away from people who have more than I do and giving it to people who have less than I do. Right?
Okay.
That's not charitable love. Charitable love is, I care about you here. Let me give to you from my own here.
Yeah, I think we probably could discuss that in some great depth and come to a more nuanced answer. But I did want to bring that out. That here in Romans, the government's primary job is to terrify the wrongdoer.
Right.
Now, you also mentioned something earlier about, let's say, breaking the sixth commandment, so committing adultery. And don't want to do that unless you want to get chased down the street by a guy at the club. And my first thought was, no. Actually, no. Because now that leads us to another thing that, hey, it is not given to me as an individual to be the bearer of God's wrath upon people.
Yeah.
But that is left to government in their proper station and office and good direction.
See, I'm going total Old Testament on this with the kinsman redeemer, where you got, cousin Jed over there.
We already
with the shotgun.
declared we can't bring the Old Testament into this, though, because it's different, right? It's different.
So much for that.
Yeah. So, but this is why we have military. This is why we have police forces, things like that.
Right.
For that matter, I guess even fire departments are protecting the interests of people, but certainly the police and such and so forth are there to strike terror into the hearts of the wrongdoer.
Right.
Now, I love a good Batman film, but let's face it, he chose that life for himself. God did not appoint him to that, right? And maybe that's why we like it, because we like that guy.
Maybe we do need a program just on is being a superhero a godly vocation or not? I mean, was Superman called to this? He was from another planet. It's hard to say.
Okay, there we go. So yeah. Anyway, I'll take you up on that. We'll do that. Not next week or.
Well, yeah, we'll have to get an expert in on this.
Okay. All right.
So anyway, but you're right that the government is established mainly to keep society on its rails. This is what we call the first use of the law.
Yeah.
The Ten Commandments in the civil sense that we observe the Ten Commandments. And so American law, British law, many countries' laws around the world are based loosely, originally, on the Ten Commandments. Mm-hmm. And so it is today, no matter how much they continue to get watered down, there's still that sense of right and wrong. Mm-hmm. It's interesting living in this postmodern society that we live in, where people have declared words no longer have meaning, and there is no absolute. There is still the absolute of me saying, well, okay, then if I picked up this stick and started hitting you with it, would that be morally wrong? And they say, yes, that would be morally wrong. Well, where'd you get that from?
Because it would hurt.
Because that's me.
Yeah.
So that law is still written on our hearts, no matter how much we want to deny that it's there. That natural law is there, and God has established the governments to keep us from just walking around whacking each other with sticks, and or worse.
Wow, that's okay. All right, yeah, I think it's good. And so they have their place now. So really quickly, it's established that society won't go off the rails. What happens when government goes off the rails? We've certainly seen over the past, couple years, numerous stories of police officers who are supposed to be good, right, upright, honorable people, doing some bad things.
Now, let me say, as one who works with the police, you're talking about maybe 1/10%. I mean, you're talking about very few.
No.
There are bad eggs in every basket. What about the pastors that do bad things?
We're not talking about pastors today.
But I'm saying, we can throw any profession into this, but you make a good point. The police are there to protect us. They are the sword of the government. Mm-hmm. They really are. So what happens when the sword starts going after the wrong things?
Okay, so what happens when, as you said, that bad egg, and I understand you work with chaplaincy, and I've got other valuable brother pastors who work with police chaplains, work as police chaplains.
A little sensitive.
And I understand that, I am very much one who respects the authority of the police officers. However, and this is my point, when someone goes off the rails, what happens then?
Well,
do they hide behind their authority, or does the authority come for them?
Right. In the ideal way, and honestly, those body cams are a blessing and a curse. A lot of cops don't like them, but then a lot of cops are redeemed by their body cams and that sort of thing.
Yeah, okay.
But it is incumbent on the police to police themselves. And so the DA needs to come after bad cops. And the DA needs to not prosecute cops that haven't done wrong. And so forth.
All right. And here's
So they are subject to the same governing authorities.
So here is my point.
Okay.
That all those, even those in authority, have an authority over them. And none are free, as in the case of the old monarchies, like where the king could just say, you know what, I've decided that I'm going to do this, and it's right because I'm the king. I'm going to raise your taxes by 8 million%, or something like that.
Right.
But no, we do live in a government where there's still an authority over these people, and they're not free to do as they wish, but they still have standards that they are held to.
Right.
And especially, as you pointed out, in our particular form of government, when our elected officials are not holding themselves to those standards, or they're trying to act outside of those standards, we can vote the bums out.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
And,
or vote the good ones in.
And there's this power of impeachment and other things also.
Absolutely. Right.
And when things are working right, these things keep people on the path. And, if you look back in history, at the time of Christ, as Christ says to Pilate, the only authority you have has been given to you. You go up the chain, you have Herod, you have Caesar, and all these people, and they still have to answer to God. And you find that people like Herod died horrible, miserable, lingering deaths because they turned their backs on God and his word and his truth. So even they will have an accountability, either in this life or the next. There is an accountability there. So no one gets away with the evil in the long run.
In the long run, no.
Right.
But yeah. So the government is there for our protection.
Right.
God has established it. He has placed it there. And we don't have nearly enough time to say, does that mean he established Hitler, right? I'm going to pick that up, and here I am putting it right back down.
Gosh, yeah.
And I've put it back down. There we go. Email us about that, and we'll discuss that at length with you personally.
Oh, gosh.
But it's all there, and God has given that. And again, primarily from these verses, to strike terror into the hearts of the wrongdoer.
Right. So let me just finish up with this real quick, and you're going to bluster at this. Therefore, one must be in subjection not only to avoid God's wrath, but also for the sake of conscience. For because of this, you also pay taxes, no matter how much I hate it. For the authorities are ministers of God, attending to this very thing. Pay to all what is owed them, taxes to whom taxes owed, revenue to whom revenue is owed, respect to whom respect is owed, honor to whom honor is owed. You have obligations. Fulfill your obligations. Take advantage of every legal loophole in the tax code.
Legal.
That's
Yeah.
legal, right? Legal loopholes. But ultimately, to whom you owe respect, give them respect. And honor.
And that is to every governing authority.
Right.
Yeah.
All
we
the
go.
way from the top to the bottom.
All right.
Well, we are pretty much out of time, but do go to 1517.org. Make a donation. Help support the gospel. See ya. For You Radio is a 1517.org production. To listen to this radio broadcast and broadcasts like this one, I invite you to visit 1517.org. There you will also find many publications and free resources, including classes on Christian apologetics, church history, philosophy, and so much more. We are completely funded by generous donors like you. Would you consider making a generous gift to our work of spreading the gospel? Simply visit 1517.org.